Hello friends and gamers and welcome to the Fortress. My name is Jinx and today I'm interviewing Cobra Wargaming. Cobra Wargaming is a YouTube channel which I would list as one of my top 5 Global War 36 YouTube channels out there. I've always just been fascinated by this guy's work. He does an amazing range of interesting things. He does custom expansions. He does his own game of World War One. He does painting of miniatures. He's just got a wide breadth of interesting things that he's up to. So it's just fascinating work, and it's been a great pleasure to have him on this channel today. So I hope you all enjoy. I'm really pleased to have him here today. It was a last minute thing. My kids finally went for a nap, and so it worked out really perfectly. So today we are discussing what to talk about, and we think what we'll talk about is some of Cobra Wargaming's custom expansions that he's created for, well, probably for a bunch of different board games, right? Not just Global War 36.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what custom expansions have you made?
All right. So for Global War, I would say that I think it began with looking at what historical board gaming hadn't been doing at the time. I think the first one that I decided to make was just about when V3 came out.
Right.
And I noticed that Italy did not have a lot of expansions at the time. They still don't really, but basically, as a Italian, I definitely wanted a lot more Italian kind of features in the game, whether it be like just minor units and stuff like that. So basically, the first expansion set I made for them was an Elite of the Empire kind of expansion, similar to Germany and Japan, and it worked a lot like, I would say, America's Minorities at War, where you would basically, grab something out of a cup and pull things out. And so at the time, I had not even played Global War, so I was really going off of kind of what historical.
Not at all.
No, I think it was still like in the mail. I had ordered it.
Oh,
for the first game. Yeah.
But you'd had no experience with version 2. It was just version 3. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
With version 2 though, I had watched all of General Hand Grenade's videos on that. That's what really got me into it. I could probably have like sat down and played version 2 perfectly.
Cool. Nice.
But yeah, I saw V3's coming out, and he made a video a long time ago. He's like, "Don't get version 2. Version 3 is coming out
right.
soon."
Yeah.
So I ended up. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, but that expansion set, kind of the success of it in my first game, definitely showed me that like I was kind of afraid that, this might be like overpowered or and put too much of a sway on it, but after seeing it, I didn't have to make too many modifications. I thought it was like an overall success, and I'm always like a fan of formatting. Like, even though I can't release them as like expansions I can sell, I made them look all pretty and stuff.
Right.
To hand out to players. Made my own custom little roundels.
Nice.
So that was very cool. And then
that's really cool. So a few questions here about that. So are people able to access your custom designs? Like, where do you have that available for your custom expansions?
Yeah, so as of the moment, all of my custom expansions are available on the Axis and Allies Facebook page. Yeah, that's one of the largest Axis and Allies communities out there. Although I've definitely wanted to, especially in the last year, wanted to invest in trying to get some friends together to make a website for kind of my channel related content, because I have so much custom content that I want people to see. And I know Facebook isn't the go-to for many people, so
that's
having
true.
A separate website would be pretty nice.
That's true. So you just sparked an idea in my head. Is like, I've been toying around because a lot of people probably do have expansions. You know what would be interesting is if we had, I don't know how Discord works exactly, but say theoretically I made a Discord page, call it whatever, and then you would be a moderator for your, sub channel in that Discord. And you could lock it down so nobody comments, or you can make a separate one there too, and you could put all your custom stuff on there. And so maybe eventually you could acquire all these people who are interested in Global War 36 and also interested in playing around with the custom designs, and we could have them, that way be a way for people to access it for my stuff, your stuff, and whoever else wants to throw their stuff on there. And it'd be a website for everybody. I know it's not the right thing, and maybe there's other things that would work better than Discord, but it's an option, right, of something to do.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've kind of played
Right,
around
okay.
with, because it's a pretty easy thing to implement. Yeah. So yeah.
Because Facebook groups don't let you post up. I mean, they let you post up stuff, but then it disappears in the news feed,
Well,
right? So.
yes, but with Facebook pages, I'm not sure if maybe some pages have different settings, because the one that exists right now is there's actually a file page where
Oh
people
yeah,
can post their
cool.
files.
Okay, that works out good.
Um,
Yeah.
So
And even I guess on Board Game Geek, you also could upload files as well too. But that works out really good on that Facebook page. If that would work out quite nice. Yeah, cool. I was going to add something. So accessibility formatting to make it look nice. So your roundels, they're just images essentially, or did you go ahead and print like acrylic round? Like, did you get them custom made too, or for your own private use?
basically, yeah, what I had ended up doing was I basically printed out on a piece of paper the artwork that I designed for each roundel, and then I would then glue them to wooden
Right.
kind of 3/4. They're the same as historical board games.
Cool.
I got them laser cut, and
Yeah. Cool. So that's really neat that you just customize your own thing. And I think formatting is huge. I think people, when they see a nice formatted kind of custom page, they see that you put a lot of thought into it, and it automatically gains some credibility. So that's really cool that you've done that. So before version 3, did you have any much YouTube presence beforehand at all, or not?
No, I would say that my YouTubing kind of kicked off with, I think, a little bit before version 3, but it was heavily related. Basically, my original kind of videos revolved around, I think it was called like, it was like building up for V3, where I would just kind of show off the pieces that I was getting from historical board games.
Right, yeah, I see. Yeah. So it has, from the very start, been orientated around Global War 36. That's really good, because that was how many years ago when you started your channel?
That must have been around, I would say, 5 years now.
Okay,
maybe
so
6.
A while then, hey? Yeah, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Yeah, cool. I like some of the videos you make. I mean, I like a lot of the videos you make, but I find some of them are really creatively interesting. Like the one where you did like This Week in Gaming. I thought those were really cool. I thought that's actually one of my inspirations for doing this stuff, is like, man, that's like, if you could have like a news anchor talking about what's happening in this, that's really cool. And so that's what inspired this, is like you'd have different people to talk on in your little show. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, I've definitely realized in the Axis and Allies community, like especially on YouTube, that it started off, I remember General Hand Grenade was like the first one that really made these slightly more structured videos, and had some, lighting, stuff like that. Because, and then as of recently, I've definitely started to see stuff like, you have a couple of my videos I remember that I've really put some time into, like how to buy Global War 36. I spent a while writing a script for that and editing. But then you've got people like you with videos like this, and even the ones where you talk about things to implement, and then stuff like Panzer King with his very movie-like cinematic.
That's right.
Recording style.
Yeah. That's really cool. So I've actually looked at your channel recently too, and that one about how to buy Global War version 3, that has you a lot of likes and views, like above average for the rest of the stuff. So you hit like some sort of magical formula that people are interested in, right? And so that's really good. So if that's what a person's pursuing, you did a really great job in that one. And you can tell. So I don't know if that's a combination of scripting and editing, but it really caught people's interest on how to do that. So yeah, that's really neat. Now, in regards to Panzer King, so he has a lot of experience in, well, sorry, let me back up a bit. Panzer King has 2 channels. One is related to Global War 36, and another one is related to his professional career. And that one, I think, if I remember correctly, he said he has like 5,000 subscribers, and he started it much later than Global War 36. So it's interesting how that works. But he's experienced in making videos, or at least does a lot of research and finds the optimal way. Like, my impression of him is he doesn't mess around too much with his free time. Like, he's productive with his free time. And so he's really good at, he's got a magnificent board set up and a very well done system. And even watching him do videos, He does them on the fly. Like he'll stand in the corner of the room on his phone and whip it together in like 5 minutes or something like that, maybe 10 minutes on his phone. And he just has it out in no time. It's crazy. So he has a lot of the know-how and that, intellectual capability of learning new things quickly. So it's good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's neat. Well, that's awesome. So 5 years at it, and that's not too bad considering the length of time other people have been at this game. So that's really cool. At this YouTube thing, that's really neat. Yeah, right on. So tell me a little bit about so you said you have Italian heritage, I assume, because you said they don't have much expansion. That's cool. Neat. So what other expansions have you made?
All right. So the next one I ended up making was called, I think, Triumph of Fascism, Bring in the Heavies. And that one was a heavies expansion, kind of like the America ones, only for Italy again.
Okay.
And so that was because I was getting a bit into 3D designing stuff. I was taking a CAD class in high school, but I ended up researching and also kind of putting together some of these like heavy Italian units, some historical, some kind of implied out of my own imagination. And I designed all those, and so that one was, I think a lot of people really found interest in that one because of the fact that it was, these new cool units that were added to the game. But it was definitely limited by the fact that I couldn't kind of give out these units because of, again, historical board gaming's content. Global War is kind of a copyrighted thing. So I definitely considered a few times talking to them about that, maybe giving them the files and them actually introducing it. So, but then since then, I think I misplaced the drive files on it. So I'll have to look around my house sometime for those things. But that expansion was probably, I liked it in concept, and I've played it in multiple games, but it never really got implemented. Like the biggest issue with Italy was the fact that they can never really, even if you're really trying to be kind of a funny Italian player and buy something, some mega tank that kind of megalomania.
That's right.
They really just don't have the cash on hand to be able to spend on stuff like that. So I definitely think that stuff like the Elites expansion was kind of cool because it's these really small units that aren't going to throw the game, but they definitely give Italy something cool to play with. Yeah.
So is that something where people can choose off of a list of what to buy?
Yeah. So basically, how that one worked was it was like, I think different units had different requirements. So like there's this really heavy tank. You would have needed to get heavy tank technology and advanced artillery. And I think that was probably the biggest limiter because Italy maybe one tech if they're lucky by the end of the game. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking about tech should be done differently. Now this might be like off on a little side trail, and I could be mixing up different board games, but I think in 1939 that HBG did, they had a point accumulation system. So you roll a dice each turn, and on whatever result that is you're working towards that goal. So say for heavy tanks you need 30 points of tech, and so each turn you roll and you add that to that value. So you can have really bad rolls, but you're still making progress. And the idea there, like again, I don't know if 39 did that or not. I feel like they did, but I'm not sure. But the idea there is like that Thomas Edison idea of like, you figured out a way not to make a light bulb, right? And so that's some scientific progress as well. You figured out a way not to make a nuclear bomb, and you're still making progress in that regards. Even if you roll a 1, it's still one step towards the goal. Because I've had a few games where I've just been hampered by tech, and it's like roll turn after turn after turn since the start of the game, and I don't get the damn tech whatsoever throughout the length of the game. And so that seems a little ahistoric, right? You know, when it's something that was quite evident in World War II, and yet you still don't get it. So I think they should move back to the point accumulation system, or they do something like if you miss, every time you miss a die roll and miss that tech, then second time around you get a die roll, but you get a +1 on each die roll, and that way you kind of get it eventually if you roll enough times. So there's different ways of doing that. And then once you get it to that next level, then it resets and your missed die roll reverts back to 0. So yeah, that's really cool. I like that system. So the downside of this is, like you say, Italy doesn't have much income to spend on. Yeah,
definitely. And like another thing I was thinking with tech is like at least some kind of collaboration between powers, because just looking to like history, the Germans developed jet fighters, and through collaboration, the Italians were actually able to get a working jet fighter out before the Germans. But of course, they didn't have the money to actually in real life invest in further designing those. And then same with heavy tanks. They, once the Germans started pumping out Tigers, the Italians tried their hand at some heavy tanks, but of course capitulated before that took off.
That's right. Well, you'd think too, like at some point you just capture a broken down Soviet tank, rip it apart, reverse engineer. It's like, well, we didn't have to do any research. We just ripped it apart and designed whatever, right? Like you get the concept. There's different ways of technology spreading without scientists or engineers in a lab. Sometimes it's just simply reverse engineering, and that can be done pretty quick. So I think tech should be reworked in a different way, and there should be some other way of doing things. I think maybe if you do this point accumulation system, you could lend lease a tech roll to people as well. And so instead of a dice 12 that you would roll for yourself and accumulate those points, maybe if the person you're lending that tech to, and they have less points than you, then you could lend lease them a dice 6. And so on their turn, they're rolling a dice 12 for their own self, but also they got the dice 6 or six-sided dice from the German guy, and so now they're also bumping themselves up a little bit. Something like that. There's ways around it for sure. That's cool. So I want to hear a little bit about any World War, unless you I want to hear a bit more about your World War I stuff that you're designing. But also, if you have any other interesting things these are all interesting, these ones that you've said, but what other highlights of custom games custom expansions have you made?
So I think one of my favorites was called Arctic Warfare. And that one basically brought kind of like Greenland, Iceland, and parts of Canada into the game a lot more.
Nice.
Yeah. That one, it basically put like a bit of like a mini game into the northern theater, where Germany's trying to invest in weather bases that give them slight little bonuses, while the Allies are trying to knock those out and capture those territories.
I like that quite a bit. Yeah.
Yep.
So bonuses to what? What do the Germans get for bonus? Just out of curiosity. I'm really intrigued in this one. I wouldn't mind looking it up.
Yeah, this one, I think it was that if the Germans had 2 or more weather stations, they had a +1 IPP because of weather information just for the civilian front to be able to plan infrastructure better.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I think it was if they had 3 weather bases, that one it gave them a +1 in attack first round of combat in the naval theater. Basically being able to plan around the weather. And there was some little bonuses like Franz Joseph Land and Svalbard, which are off map. They're up at the North Pole. And so if Germany can capture, like, say, Norway and control all of Norway, they can then receive 1 free weather-based bonus representing those ones up north.
Nice. I like that quite a bit. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about convoy rating.
Oh, yeah. I think that it might, I'm not sure off the top of my head, I think that it may have given submarines a +1 to convoy rating, but I can't say for sure. I haven't looked at that one in a while now.
That's an interesting one. I'd like to look into that one, because I think for me, expansions are broken down into at least 2 different categories. There could be more. But there's one category that adds flavor, and usually those are from units and such. You could call it another category that adds flavor, but not through units, but through kind of events and things that occur. So for instance, I was just looking at today the New Berlin. It's like if Berlin falls, then Germany starts anew in Argentina. And so that one it adds a couple of units, but it adds more of a concept or it extends the game, makes it a little bit more interesting. That one's a bit broken because it costs you $15 to do this feature, and it's like $15 or buy 5 infantry to help defend Berlin to prevent it from falling, right? So, or a fortification or something like that. But, back to what I was getting before. This Arctic Warfare one I like because it doesn't just impact the Germans, it impacts the Allies. They're preventing them from going this. And I was going to do a video with Wintermute talking about our favorite expansions, and I bet you we're going to have the same ones because they're all expansions that don't just impact one player, they impact at least 2 different alliances. They impact the Germans and the Allies in the Axis, or the Comintern and the Axis or something like that. And so this one I like because it does that. It does that, and it also, like you said, makes a little bit of a mini game, and I think that's really cool. I like that feature. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely say that with expansion sets, what I like to see is like some of my favorite ones show it where they're not super complex to implement. Like I
Yeah.
would point to something like Partisans, as there's just so many die rolls when you get
Yeah.
into like
Yeah.
I like the concept and I really want to play it. It's just
Mm.
that all these die rolls to generate Partisans, and they block certain things. You have to
Yeah.
make sure you can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then yeah, looking at things like say the elite of the Reich or minorities at war, they're just
Hmm.
easier to implement, and having these cool elite units kind of adds to the game.
That's true. I agree with you 100%, except I find that Elite of the Reich, I'm not crazy about Elite of the Reich or the Allies, one of the Comintern equivalent, because I find, at least in the one that I played with the Axis, is like you have to watch for certain features in the game. Is like when you have a heavy tank in, I'm just making stuff up, but in Lithuania, then this is what occurs. And it's like, well, I don't want to have to read a sheet every single turn and refresh my memory with all this kind of stuff. So I think that's the only stumbling block for me. But I think if HBG did like an analysis of all the popular expansions, they would see these ones like Elite of the Reich, and you kind of have to have Elite of the Reich plus the Comintern one plus the British one or something like that. Like it's hard to keep balanced. How do you, if somebody says, I want to play with the Italian elite one, how do you keep that game balanced for everybody else? Does everybody get their own elite now? And does that keep things balanced or not? Because, there's 3 Axis players, 2 Allied players usually, and a Comintern. So does that keep it balanced or not, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something to point. And I was going to point that out with the Elite of the Reich. I think I have just about every expansion set, and I think that was
No way.
one of the
Cool.
reasons I didn't invest in that, because I was like, unless I figure out something, I can't see me
Yeah.
or like a new German player like
Right. Yeah.
looking through this
Yeah.
chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
true. The partisan stuff too is like, so the more dice rolls you do, the less. Well, it slows down the game quite a bit too. So yeah, you're absolutely right in that regards. I've been thinking about that one as maybe you roll instead of per territory, you roll kind of per region, like Southern Europe, Ukraine, or lower part of Russia or something like that, and you roll kind of at a larger level, and then maybe you roll combine 2 dice and say, well, you get the idea. There's different ways of doing things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, cool. No,
yeah.
that's interesting. So tell me a little bit about the stuff you put for World War One. That's my favorite period in history, so I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that's also my favorite, and
Is it? Cool.
especially with the amount of research that went into
Hmm.
making my own World War One game.
Yeah, yeah.
I've learned a lot
Oh,
from
yeah?
that period. Uh, so that all started, I think, with there was a channel called what was it? The it was something that had to do with the lion. I forget now,
Oh,
but
I'm really familiar.
yeah, I'll have to look that up. But basically, he had made this custom map, basically an expansion to the
Hmm.
original 1914 map.
Right, right.
And then he ended up making a larger, just kind of global scale map. But
Yeah,
of course,
okay. I
it
feel
was
like I've seen
smaller.
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Um, yeah. So basically, from there, I think I had found the Facebook page that then got me that file, and I was
Hmm.
looking at it, and there was a few things that I thought I could maybe make a little bit better. Like I wanted a few more territories here and there to add some
Right.
diversity
Yeah.
to the strategy. And from there, I think I started on my like first version where I pretty much started from scrap. It definitely had the same art style because I
Hmm.
was using the same program as him,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it definitely took off in terms of lots more territories, new nations, and like different also mainly tons of new units. The original
Right.
1914 out of box units, infantry, artillery,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
not a lot of diversity.
Yeah.
Um, yep. So, and then in researching and finding out more and more about World War One, I was able to add. I was just having a discussion with somebody in the Axis and Allies community, and then talking about. I think I went for a more what I called arcade
Hmm.
and fun board game than as a very historical one,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
I would describe maybe like Global 36 kind of like, where it is definitely like fun, but it's more of, hey guys, want to play a World War II game, and got the Axis and Allies in common turn, um, and stuff like Germany maybe investing in a World War II colonial empire is gonna not bring them anywhere in the
Yeah.
game. Whereas in mine, like in my World War One game, Germany say has a little bit more infantry in their Pacific colonies, so that
Okay.
if they want to try to make a landing in like a small landing in Australia, they could. They'd probably
Mm.
get beaten back, but they have the option to try
Mm-hmm.
a little
Mm-hmm.
something different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we definitely saw that in the last game we played of that my group, where um, I guess it kind of did lead to the German downfall, but I tried investing in Germany having this strong colonial empire
Mm-hmm.
and building all these commerce raiders. And yeah, so, and also it was kind of fun in the sense of like building a bunch of commerce raiders and then raiding the Caribbean, just kind of like
Cool.
these fun
Yeah.
little like
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean type
That's right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So a few questions on that. So just to clarify, you're saying that your World War One game that you designed is more arcade-like. You said, right? It's not like so much of a historical simulation focus like Global War 36 is. Is that accurate, or were you saying that Global War 36 is a bit arcade-like as well?
I would say that it definitely has a bit, especially when you add expansions, not even like the wackier ones, just stuff like diplomacy. It
Right.
doesn't change the historical aspect too much, but it
Right.
definitely adds some more like variation with
Right.
like
Right.
say Sweden going to
Sure,
Russia, stuff like
sure.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're trying to
But
create a game
yeah,
that was similar in spirit, I guess, to Global War 36, right? Is that roughly of yeah, okay. Because
yeah.
I didn't quite understand the connection between Global War 36. That's really cool. So, what's your start date for your World War One game?
In terms of when it
Like,
starts, it like 1914 like kicks
okay,
off.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And you're
it
still
definitely
capable,
doesn't.
even despite that start date, to still build up a Caribbean raider fleet and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, that it definitely kind of takes place on the side. So like in
Oh.
that game, Germany has the special ability to construct commerce raiders, which represents them kind
Mm-hmm.
of outfitting ocean liners.
Sure,
They're
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yep. So it allows for those little things out in the midst while there's still the major kind of fight going on in Europe.
Oh, so do they have to build the commerce raiders in Germany? Or sorry, are they forced to build it in Germany, or can they outfit these commerce raiders in the Caribbean type of deal?
Yeah, they can
Oh,
basically ports that they have across the world.
cool.
You can build. I think it's one per turn at a fort. I mean, at a port, and
Nice. Yeah,
yeah, and they're
that's
pretty
really
weak
cool.
units, but
Yeah,
yeah, they definitely. Uh, it definitely. I think what I tried to do with that is to make German ports more important to the Allies,
that's right.
because a lot
Yeah,
of them are. Yeah, a lot of them are on low IPC islands that the Allies didn't really want to take. But with a port, Germany could start
totally.
building these liners.
Totally,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's very important too because that was the biggest effort that the British were making initially was to like negate the German Empire abroad, prevent stuff from happening. Because yeah, and that's a good mechanic of doing things too, just to make it so that you can build a threat anywhere in the globe. So good system. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I'd love to talk about that more, but I don't know if we should linger on that too much. I had one idea for Global War 1914. If a person doesn't want to start way back when, what about if you had a system set up where you have battle plans, right? So you can have. So one of my favorite video games that deals with World War One is To End All Wars. It's called. It's no longer in production. It's super clunky and horrible. But one thing I really liked about that was at the start of the game, but it's a video game, right? But at the start of the game, you could play with other players too. You choose a battle plan, and so you can be as the Germans. You want the Schlieffen plan, or you can be the Ruprecht plan or the Moltke plan, right? And these different plans would you would have a different setup chart for each one. And so the Moltke plan would be like a more focused all out against Russia with minimal forces on the East Front. And this is based in history as well. And then the French would have plan number 14, plan number 16, and plan number 9, and a different thing like offensive push from where's Lorraine kind of area there, offensive push there, or defensive stance around Belgium, and that kind of system. And I thought that was really, really fun and a really cool way of implementing that. If a person doesn't want to go from all the way back in 1910 and do like a pre-war kind of thing, you can have these different setup charts. And it's all secret too. So you select yours, and once everybody's selected, you just reveal it. And okay, well, I'm going to be screwed now because my plan is completely opposite from what the other guy is doing, and I'm going to be dead in the water or whatever, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I've never actually considered something like that, and that's actually a really cool idea. Like,
I thought so too. Yeah.
yeah,
Like, for instance, you'd
yeah,
have the Russians focusing on Austria. They'd choose that battle plan because they're like, oh yeah, they're going to do this Schlieffen plan. We don't need to worry about it. But turns out the Germans actually chose the Moltke plan, which is an all-out attack against Russia. So it's like, well, so it's pretty cool. I really like that system. And it creates uniqueness for every game that you play. They don't get into the problem with Axis and Allies where it's like, well, obviously, the first thing you do is you do this, this, and this. And if you don't do that, you're kind of crazy, right? So I like that variability between different plays.
yeah, and yeah, definitely. That's probably something I'll have to consider with mine because I do think mine does have a decent amount of you have a little bit of decision. Like I guess if Germany decided to take a slightly more defensive stance against France because they're not ready for an all-out assault turn one, that would definitely work. But I definitely like that idea because I think of it kind of like why I like Global War 36 because with Global 1940, like the out-of-box version, I would always like tell my friends like, beginning of the game, it really, and many people pointed out, it kind of plays out the same because, as the German player, you didn't plan for war, history did, and so Germany doesn't have a fleet because they didn't want that. They have a lot of like tanks. Maybe you wanted to mass infantry, but you can't because the guys in the 1930s planned it out like this. Whereas 36 gives you the ability to say like, I'm going to do this or that.
And yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that leads me to another thought that I thought I'd share with you. I really like War Plan Z. I think that's a cool expansion. But it's never going to be played because anytime the German player is like, I'd like to play with War Plan Z, guess what the British player is going to be gearing up for, right? So it's like you almost have to have War Plan Z every single time you play the game. And then that way, if you play it with every single game, you don't know as a British player if he's going to actually do War Plan Z. It's available to him, but you don't know what he's going to do, right? So I think it'd be cool if you had like a retrospective expansions kind of thing that at a certain point, say you choose even almost like a secret expansion for some expansion. I know it wouldn't work for everything, but if you have a certain type of expansion called operations expansion, I'll tell you at the start, you need to allocate $20 for this expansion. And so you get the $20 and it's secret. Everybody knows you put $20 aside, but they don't know which plan you bought. They don't know if it's like a big tank push or if it's War Plan Z. And then once it hits a certain date, it'll be like, bam, you suddenly put those units that are incorporated into your plan and they show up on the board at a specific date. So it doesn't give a clue to the enemy. Now, the problem there is certain things are going to be, like there'll be spies and reports and the British newspapers will be like, oh, there's an extra, our washed up fishermen will say like, yeah, the Germans are building a lot of ships. So there should be some clue as to what direction you're going to. But, I don't know exactly how to do that. But there's different ways. Like maybe some person will roll a dice each turn, and then if they succeed on this number or less, then they get to look at what plan you chose, or something like that to represent that espionage level of things, right? So that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I do remember. I think like a simple way of kind of implementing that was Sired Blood. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of him. Yeah, I don't know much about what he's all about, but I've heard the name many a time.
Yeah, and so with his custom Global 40 game, they have secret tech, which I really like because
is that the BBR game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I know who you're talking about. Yeah, secret tech. So sorry, but go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. So everybody, chooses their tech secretly, and then I think that you have to pay when you pay for your turn, it's guaranteed that it moves up, and then it keeps moving up until I think the fourth turn. Where if you had been paying every turn, you then reveal it. And in a game that's more simple like 1940, you can something like a technology has a pretty big effect. So
that's right. Yeah.
There's been games that I really liked when I was watching it back in the day, where Britain maybe went for radar because they think Germany's going to do a big fighter push, but then Germany had invested in advanced artillery, and they have tons of artillery on board.
Right.
Now, Yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah, that's really neat. I like that. I've never played BBR or watched it too much just because there's so much other things to watch and do. But yeah, that's really a cool concept. I should look into them because they have some pretty cool ideas. So you were talking before about the guy that designed the map based upon Axis Lines 1914, and you said you have the same design program. Could you tell me which one that is?
it was just Paint 3D, so
Oh,
Microsoft.
oh
Yeah,
yeah?
very,
Okay.
very, very simple.
Right, yeah.
Didn't have a lot of. I mean, looking at the map, I definitely see like how was I able to make this
Right,
because,
yeah, yeah.
um, uh, especially in the modern time of making it, and I had recently last year been working on a Roman Empire
Mm-hmm.
era map, and I was using this map making software called GIMP,
Yeah,
and I was
I
able
use
to
GIMP, yeah.
yeah, and I was able to get like such a it just looked beautiful and also just it was more advanced of a program so I could say go back
Mm-hmm.
if I say with my World War I map if I wrote all the names down and then realized wait the terrain needs to be different I
Mm-hmm.
have to erase all those
Yeah,
names
yeah,
and then redo yeah it's not
yeah,
layered
yeah,
so
yeah. So
yeah
you're the John that lost all his work.
oh yep yeah
I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, I read that the other
yeah
day. I was like, shoot, that absolutely sucks. Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to
yeah.
mention that. The good thing is that seeing like the bright side of it, a lot of members in the community were able to get me most of my work back.
Nice. That's
So,
really good. Yeah.
yeah,
So
I was really glad
just
about that.
state the case for the viewers in case they're not familiar with the story.
Yeah. So basically, I think it was about a month ago that the computer that I had saved all of my work on, which included my World War I game, my Roman Empire game, all of that, basically the I think it was the memory got corrupted and it had to be replaced. So there was no way to really recover any of it because it had
Mm-hmm.
just
Right.
kind of snapped and
Yeah.
stopped
Ah.
working. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
a really big hit
Oh, I bet.
considering
Yeah.
yeah, all the stuff I had on
Like
it.
the
But
hours of work you put into it, not
yeah,
like crazy.
that that was I think between the hours, especially with stuff like the Roman Empire map, which was like I just kind of gotten it to completion, and I
Mm-hmm.
had all and also in terms of the investment, the Roman
Mm-hmm.
Empire's map, I was like, oh, it's gonna be done soon. Maybe next time I go home, I can print it out and play it with my
Mm-hmm.
group. And I had invested in all of these pieces for the game too,
Ah.
and I have those pieces, and
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of painting them, and
Yeah.
now I'm gonna have to wait on
Yeah.
that for a
Yeah.
while.
Ouch.
Yeah,
But did you get back? So you said you got sufficient of it back, but did you get enough to like fairly up to date or
yeah. So with
like
the Roman, yeah, the ancient kind of map is that was sadly gone,
gone?
so
Eh?
that's gonna
Yeah.
have to be redone. The World War I game, I'm glad that I have my original files for that back, but
Mm.
I was working on a kind of final
Mm.
version,
Mm-hmm.
which but the good thing with that lost file was I was probably about maybe 2 hours tops into that project, so
Okay. Yeah.
there wasn't a lot lost on that, and I can also kind of yeah
So another thought too is like it's not just that you lost the image itself. It's like you lost the layers. You know that GIMP puts it all in layers. It's like you said the labels, the terrain, the graphical features behind it. Like people on Facebook might have your kind of more or less finished product, but it's kind of on flat. It's all combined into one, compressed into one layer, whereas you had it all series up. So you've lost a lot of that modability capacity now, and now to change that, you have to go right down from the beginning and relayer it up, which is I've recently hired an artist to work on a game that I'm making because I'm very technologically well, I'm not very good at it. I have GIMP and I've played around with it. I just don't have the time to like invest into it, right? So I've found somebody on Fiverr to help put something together, but they don't understand board games that much, so they just slap it together and it's I mean, this guy's experienced, right? So he's not just slapping it together. But man, I should really learn how to use GIMP properly to actually make a proper thing.
yeah, and that was actually I definitely don't suggest it, but that was the funny thing with that ancient empires map was that I had never used GIMP, and I was
Right.
actually watching a tutorial
Hmm.
on how to make a Dungeons and Dragons map. That was basically my inspiration.
Hmm.
And so as I'm watching the tutorial, he's making this a little field basically,
Hmm.
like a little medieval map, whereas
Right.
I'm doing it on the scale
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
Mediterranean. And
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, just going through all that, and
Yeah.
it's like as I'm learning, I'm also making this board game, which
Yeah.
was a lot of
Yeah. Oh, sure.
a
Yeah,
lot of
totally.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. Well, that's sad that you lost it all, but I suppose you can kind of approach it with the fresh eyes and see this as like a second edition and maybe using ideas of the previous past, just try to build up from there, perhaps, hopefully.
Yeah, that's definitely how I see it. And then
Hmm.
also, I am also treating it as I think a break from, I think especially with my World War I game,
Hmm.
since I started working on that 4 years ago, there's been, I think the one that I released recently, or like about a year ago, was version 5, and
Hmm.
so it was constantly being redone. I would see it, not really be happy with it,
Right,
do it
right.
again,
Hmm.
and so basically, like, I think I'm taking this as a break to stop looking at some of the games I was making like that. So
Hmm.
maybe try some smaller theater games. I've really wanted to make a North African theater
Oh,
game for a
nice. Yeah.
while. So
Yeah.
some smaller project like that might be a
Yeah.
better investment.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, no, there's a lot of games about North Africa though, but I'm sure, you know, if a person approaches it with fresh eyes and new unique concept behind it, I think it'd be really cool. Like World War II North Africa, obviously, right? Is that what you're thinking? Cool. Yeah, yeah. Nice, nice. No, that's really neat. I was looking at one game called Blocks of Africa. I seen it on Doug's shelf when I went down to Tulsa. Have you ever heard of it? It was made by Italian. No, look into it. Blocks of
No.
Africa. They have blocks of Europe as well, and you can combine them into making this thing. And the idea there is it's kind of I don't know what you call it, hidden placement where your blocks are facing you and your opponents are facing them. And it's neat because you can kind of rotate to like reduce their strength, right? Because they'll have like a strength value of 6 and then you rotate it, now it's a 4 3, and you can use specific resources to bump them up. So for instance, if you knock down a tank 2 points, you can use 2 iron and it'll bump them up a little bit, right? Or two, food or whatever you want to call it, right? So look into it because it's all in Italian and I can't read it. And with your Italian heritage, sorry, it's not all in Italian, but the forums and everything like that, since it's originated from an Italian producer, so a lot of the stuff is Italian. Yeah,
Yeah. Speaking of like Italian board games,
yeah.
there's this one that I think it was 3 months ago I learned about. It's called Universalis, something like that. It's basically a massive map of Europe during the medieval times,
Oh yeah, okay.
uh, and I think it's a pretty decent price for like what you get with the game. Lots of
Hmm.
cool sculpts and everything, but everything is in Italian or it's translated
Oh
to
no.
like so I spent like about a month kind of deciphering it and being like, okay, I think I have it
That's
down
funny.
now. Yeah.
Right on, yeah. Well, that's really cool that you've been working on all this stuff. That's really neat. I'm sad to hear that you lost a lot of your stuff, but yeah, hopefully it all comes back eventually and comes back in a better format than it did before. So
Yeah.
another thought with your expansions and like a lot of people, it'd be neat if you could either sell the idea or have HBG kind of take your idea, brush it off, polish it up, and then because I have the Canada War expansion through HBG, and I mean I didn't get. I mean, sorry, the monetary compensation for designing stuff is there's not much monetary compensation, if any. It's a labor of love. So I'm sure if you talk to HBG, they might even endorse your product. Like they'll check through it, endorse your product, and put it on their website and make it more widely available to the community. You should send them an email
Yeah.
maybe and see what they have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely thought about getting that out there at least. I think
Mhm.
I did email them a while ago
Right.
about
Yeah.
some ideas with a random events deck
Oh yeah. Okay.
expansion for
Cool.
36, and
Mm-hmm.
that one didn't seem, that one was definitely like not really finished. It was like,
Mm.
here's some ideas for this. I've heard some people saying they want it, but with the things I've, especially when I find those 3D files for the Italian heavies,
Yeah.
plus plus some like especially like the fact with like the elites expansion, I have all the artwork for stuff like round
Yeah.
bus,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I feel like that would pick up a lot more with them than the something like a random event, a half
Yeah.
finished random
Yeah. Yeah.
event list.
Yeah.
Although one thing I did see on the Facebook page was that there was somebody actually working with them on an Italian elite expansion, but
Okay.
it ended up falling through and they
Mm.
didn't pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking at that, it definitely, in my mind, lacked a little bit of diversity. I think
Right.
all of
Yeah.
it's like assigning just SS units to the Germans. They were all just like, this just bumps your infantry up, whereas mine had a little bit more features and stuff. So, and I think also from my younger years of making these expansion sets, I've gotten over like, like I don't really care about money. I like, I make these sets to show to people, and then they're like, wow, I love this set, and it's got a really cool gameplay, and it'd be fun seeing that.
For sure, yeah. No, it's all about enjoyment of the game for you, and it's not that you're going to be compensated one way or another, right? No, but it's cool if you are, just even $20 or whatever, right? It'd be okay. No, that's neat. That's neat, especially if you can combine not combine your ideas. By putting it out there, it's more widely available, and people will give you suggestions later on, and it can always improve and become better. I want to talk about expansions a little bit more too. So one thing with expansions, I feel, is that they there's different kinds of expansions like we were talking about, and so let's talk about some other stuff that you created. Sorry, I was starting to go down one direction. I decided to bring it back here because it would sorry, what other things would you like to talk about?
I mean, some other expansions would be I'd be all right to talk about that, because I definitely have a few more that were pretty notable. So I think one that was I really liked, but it never really got a ton of notability, was it was from another person on the Facebook page that made it was called Sweden Finland at War, and it was basically if Sweden and Finland had kind of joined in a confederation, and it allowed you to play as that nation.
Cool.
And so I really liked that. I ended up taking his stuff. I kind of rebalanced it and formatted it as if it was like an HVG like chart. And so I never played it. He did. He really liked it. But like I said, it was pretty difficult to implement in the fact that you're going to need, a whole nother nation worth of pieces. And especially for me, as you may know, I paint all of my nations realistically. I was like, I really want to play this, but I got to buy and paint.
It's such an investment. Especially if you're buying every expansion that HPG comes up with. That's crazy.
It's definitely a process, but that one's definitely something that I liked. But I guess that one's something that I can look at as a game player and see like, well, that's a really cool expansion, but it's probably not something that I would play, just because it's a little bit too much, adding this whole other nation into the game.
Not to mention too, like how does that actually work? Are they their own alliance? Like they don't collect their own victory points?
Yeah, that's kind of pretty much how they work, where they are like a neutral entity that can decide to kind of support the Axis allies. I think the only faction they hate is the Comintern. They won't do anything with them, and
that's interesting. I kind of like that idea. That's pretty clever. I mean, a person could do something similar with South American nations, saying that perhaps, I mean, I know they wouldn't necessarily join, but theoretically boost up, say, Brazil quite a bit, give them, say, double the income, and now they're their own, like, alliance down there that they have to kind of figure stuff out and somehow win the game. Or maybe they win the game if the difference between the victorious players is like only a difference of 2 or something like that, right? Like the Comintern win with 13 points, but the Axis are second at 11, and so then South America would win or something like that, right? That'd be a really, really interesting concept. Scandinavia would work really well.
I definitely, it adds a lot of complexity, but I really like having nations as their own entity. It's like with Turkey at war. It doesn't just become German. All of its money, all of its units, it's its own entity. It makes the game longer. It adds another power, but I like it being pure Turkish units. And
I thought they become Italian. I thought the Turks become Italian, or played by the Italian.
They're played by the Italian player, but it's kind of like the Commonwealth. Their IPCs and units are their own separate
I see.
thing.
That's really cool.
And then speaking of Scandinavian countries, there was another expansion set that was from the same guy that made the Sweden-Finland one, and it was called I think it was the Nordic countries at war. That one I
Okay.
really liked, and
Yeah.
I've played it in 3 games now, and
Oh.
basically it just adds, so Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark. It just kind of
Yeah.
ups their
Yeah.
involvement. So there's stuff like heavy water facilities in
Yeah.
Norway, so it
Yeah.
gives both nations bonuses to control that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I like that because there's still neutral entities. They still get conquered and everything, but it just adds a little bit. Like the Germans can invade Denmark and decide to make it a protectorate. So and it allows them to basically get a free SS, like when they
Mm-hmm.
go to war with Russia. It's like little things like
Mm-hmm.
that that are kind of
Hmm.
cool. Yeah, and
That's really cool. I like that.
yep,
Yeah. Huh.
yeah.
That's neat. So I think we should start winding this down. So will you be joining the next spring offensive? You don't live too terribly far away from that.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that, like when I checked out the maps, but for one, that one I'm not sure when it is
June, I
exactly.
think. June or July. One of
June.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually might be a possibility because
Yeah.
it does line up with me not being in college. But
Nice.
yeah, it's definitely a consideration. But
Mhm.
I am fairly busy.
Yeah. 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 With
Yeah,
school and such. Yeah.
yeah, but I've really, especially like, I think it was Panzer King put out a video about a month ago before what is this one, the winter offensive? I forget. Uh,
Oh.
Operation Skyhook.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that they had a free slot because I can't remember, was it General Hand Grenade couldn't attend
Oh yeah. Okay.
or couldn't do the YouTube Wars, and I
Right.
was like, darn, like if I had a place to set up my table
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that, I
Yeah.
would totally do a YouTube Wars. But I've really wanted, like, between YouTubers or some of the members on the Facebook page, I've really wanted to play with some other like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Axis and Allies hobbyists.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
My group of players, I have about 3 in my
Okay.
friend group that I've kind of decided that they are invested enough to actually play it, but they're
Right.
more of let's play this game maybe once or twice a year.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a board game off to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
side.
yeah. I see. So you do have local players to play with, right? For this game.
Yeah.
Because you say you play certain customizations and such, like, you know, the Nordic countries, you said you played 2 or 3 times. It's like, man, you got two or three games with people willing to play custom expansions. That's really cool. That is pretty special to have people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing that I see a lot on like the Facebook page when it like comes to like players, is that I see like my friends in my group over, and even me, like I play a lot more in like I don't know, just like a more fun aspect of when we play. No one's really invested in like, you know, doing the best thing ever, to doing like the best possible strategy to win the game. It's like with Germany actually. I came up with a strategy that I mentioned to my brother who also plays, and he thought it would be a funny thing to do, which is basically build a couple transports, sail around, and capture all of Germany's old colonies in Africa, like in Portugal and stuff before the war starts. It's like it'll probably be a detriment in the end, but it would just be a funny thing as the allies are like, what, you can't do that? Yeah. So
the downside of having such a big game that takes multiple days to play is that if you tend to do this kind of things, people won't like that. They'll frown on you and say, like, you know, you just threw the whole game for everybody else. But I understand the appeal behind it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. And
but one thing though too, I was talking with somebody, and I was saying, like, sometimes the best move to make is not the most optimal move. I don't know if I said that the right way, but I used as an example Scotland. Like, say Scotland is held by the English with 1 militia or something like that. Sometimes simply by attacking it, even if you lose it immediately, sometimes that still has some benefit behind it, because now they're like, this guy is kind of unpredictable. He knew he's going to lose it the next turn, yet he still did it anyways. What else is he going to do just that doesn't make sense, right? It's like, it's in the form of chess. It's like giving up a unit right at the start of the game, because chess is all about, almost, not quite, and I might offend people, but a lot of it's about memorization of these moves that were done and these moves that counter those moves, and going on and on and on. So if you do something really dumb at the start of the game, I mean, not super duper dumb, but, you know, a little bit dumb, that makes you lose a single piece or something like that, you know, you're a tower or something, that changes the whole nature of the game, and it puts you in a less optimal move at the start, but it might actually help you win the game because you might be playing with like traditionalist kind of players who are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he do this? And it might mess them up for the rest of the game. So those moves too, like going around and capturing all of the old German colonies. I mean, I think that's a little bit too crazy, but it still has some merit in the game.
Yeah, I do remember one time something like that actually worked out, like in terms of crazy but smart, I guess, was it was 1939, and my brother, as Russia, he took the Russian Navy. He had built a transport, and he sent it down. I think he captured the one IPC territory Portugal had in Africa, and then he also captured Portugal. And was able to kind of be like allies, you know. Don't do anything about this. But it actually kind of helped them in the end, because when Germany aligned nationalist Spain, Russia had this contingent in Portugal that was able to kind of counter that. It actually worked out in the end.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works now. Like, I don't know if Russia could declare war early. Maybe it can. I can't remember anymore. But yeah, that's an interesting strategy.
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think with Russia it was it's late. It's July 1939. They can declare war on other nations. Minors.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's interesting. Okay, well, excellent. I actually really enjoyed talking with you today. I think it was fun. And if you're interested in doing this again sometime, that'd be quite enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, man. Okay. Thanks a lot. I will talk to you later.
All right.
Okay, bye.